Okay, folks, I don't know if you can see me. I really can't like turn on the lights in my car, but driving back to the hospital they have here because my mom's in the ICU. I don't remember the exact like chain of events that led up to the main occurrence that caused her to be in the hospital again, but like I think it was a month or two ago, she got released from the hospital after she survived double pneumonia, and like just a whole. I can't even describe all the stuff that was going on because she had like the MRSA infection and these two others from what I remember. She somehow made it through that, came back home, and then I don't even remember what exactly happened. I think they were just doing a routine CAT scan, but they found a mass in her pancreas and ended up ordering a biopsy. And they're saying that she has cancer, pancreatic cancer. Saying that it's metastasized, so stage 4, which probably means that this was going on for a long time. And there's of course the question of whether or not all her pain issues over the last 10 years were the cancer, and that for various reasons it never really got looked into. And if it truly is stage 4, and if the doctors are right, though it spread too much that it's untreatable. And I mean, we're not taking that opinion as like the gospel. We're trying to get her into this leading cancer treatment center here. She is in the ICU right now because low blood pressure, disorientation. She was like basically downing way too many Tylenol. I don't know if she was trying to end it all or what, but essentially the idea at this point is that she has to recover enough that she can be released from the ICU and then go directly to the cancer center and start chemotherapy. Find it strange that I can talk about this in a rational manner because honestly I have been crying pretty hard on and off here and there when sort of the gravity of it all kind of like hits me like full force, and I just like I can't hold back anymore. And whatever the exact causes are, whether it was her alcoholism or it's something else, or stress or what have you, it's just like you end up looking back over the past 23 years, and I don't know, like I have I have memories obviously from before that, and those are the ones where like I just remember like my mom and how she was and my relationship with her and when it was good. And you thought you had more time. You hoped you had more time. If my mom was in her 80s or her 90s, I could probably be like, well, I made it through middle age, I'm almost at retirement age, and I got myself set up, and somewhere along there got married and had some kids, and maybe they got to spend enough time with her that they know who she is and have memories of her and that sort of thing. And it would be more like I'd be willing to accept it, I guess. It would still hurt, because you still because it's your mother. Obviously, unless they were so horrible to you. And most of the time, it's it's a dysfunctional sort of mixed bag where you have like the good and the bad and the ugly all mixed together. But you don't want to lose them, especially not under these circumstances, because like I don't know, like I've talked so often about like being held back in life and the effects of like decisions that my parents made and my sister made and I made, and my scumbag in-laws and all of that. But it's like it's like being at a point where it's almost like things haven't really come together and they're just falling apart, and I just don't feel like she'll be going out of this world with sort of like sense of peace and a sense of, we did what we came to do, and, okay, it's time to go, And, we all have our sort of, well, could this have caused it? Could that have caused it? And of course, maybe it's a bit of a coping mechanism, but I want to lean into the alcoholism. I've, read about, that I get conflicting reports as to like what has played, the role in it, what could be causing this, and I don't know if it's medication that she's been taking all this time, or it is the alcoholism. I feel like it's a major contributing factor, but at the same time, it's kind of like we're at a point where it's like it doesn't matter, anymore in her case, because she's got this, and I almost feel like something like this was going to happen. I always thought it was going to be my dad, because the situation in my mom's family was that it was my grandpa who went first, and he was a heavy drinker, and he had this rare form of heart disease, and they honestly, from what I've been told, didn't correctly treat it, because when they had him on this antibiotic where he was actually like starting to make a real recovery, they took him off of it before the infection was completely gone, and then it came back with a vengeance and killed him. And I always hear these stories about the stuff leading up to that, and just I always thought it was gonna be my dad. Of course, in my dad's case, in his family, it was his mama went first, and she was really, really young, and it was like it was like a massive heart attack, and she was just gone. And so I don't know, I've always kind of felt like my parents were like living their lives like there was no tomorrow, and they almost like made it to be the case. Like anytime we tried to get my mom off the alcohol, my dad would be like the weakest thing and kind of go behind our backs and get her more of it, buy her more of it. And I'm gonna turn on the defogger. And I don't know how much of a contributing factor that was, but like I said, at this point, it's just like I'm really scared to be losing her, because even though we've been estranged, and I've oftentimes, in recent times, like, basically, like, in part because of, doing my research into my grandpa and his life, and seeing all these, really scary parallels between him and myself, and, my parents and his parents. Even though I've voiced all these sorts of, this interpretation, is understand that, like, my parents, my mom in particular, is kind of like, oh, well, not even just my mom in particular, I mean, just, in general, they did things that they didn't care about the effects of it, whether on themselves or on, on myself, and ended up, basically structuring my life to the point that I got held back in life. And now being at 36 and being where I'm at, when I coulda, shoulda, woulda been there at 26, and I kind of feel like even though I would have still had my screw ups, just because that's kind of part of the process of going from being a boy to being an actual, grown man. Like, you're gonna make mistakes on the way, and you're gonna have to learn from them, and hopefully you don't make too big a mistake so that it becomes like a permanent sort of a thing. But even though I've voiced all that, I just I see that as being in the past right now, and I just want my mom to be alive, because as long as she's alive, there's a chance that we could, quote unquote, make up for things. We could create better memories. We could repair our relationship. We could change the course of things, and make our peace with things. And it's like I'm having to try and do that all in such a compressed timeline, because I don't know how much longer she's going to be here. I really don't. You read all these stories about folks who get pancreatic cancer, and they didn't catch it early enough, and it's stage 4, and remember, like, it's, you know, similar to like when I had this dog. We had this dog. Well, we had two of them, but the guy, the male dog, his name was, you know, Cujo, and I remember when he was dying, and all I could do was just like give him more water, and, you know, eventually, like, and I thought that was, you know, I was, the only thing I could do to help him was just like to make sure he was drinking some water, and, you know, he would end up like throwing it up eventually, and I had to stop. And, you know, I think about a week or so later, I don't know how much later it was when he died, and my dad had to try and do like CPR on him, and, you know, through the whole process he was just in such immense pain, and because it was a Sunday, you know, the vet's office was closed, we couldn't take him in to have him euthanized. And it's just like that sort of feeling of like, you know, you'll be like you'll be in another room, or maybe you're in the same room with, you know, your parent, you know, hear them crying out, you know, for somebody, for anybody, for you to come and help them, and you know, want to rush in there, and you can't do anything, and just, you know, hearing like the fear and the pain in their voice, and you can't do anything about it. You just have to like try and hold them, and, you know, wait for them to go, and, you know, want them to go, you know, quickly and that sort of thing, but at the same time you don't want them to go. And, you know, I don't know really what the lesson or the point of this all is. I mean, I do want to have a conversation with my mom where I say that I'm not angry at her anymore, and I'm forgiving her for everything, whatever she may have done, that, you know. Maybe get some drink, because obviously I'm clamming up and I can't talk as clearly, but I just gotta make sure that she knows that I don't hate her, you know, that I'm not hateful of her, and I don't hold anything against her anymore. You know, because that's one of those things that you gotta, you know, it's whatever you might want to think about Shakespeare and, you know, his Henriade and the King. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like it, you know, their history buffs, because they, you know, they'll say, oh, you make him out to be a pacifist when he was this warmonger and he committed all these human rights, you know, violations, and just like, you know, war crimes, and, you know, stuff that we would term, you know, war crimes in modern parlance, and even probably in the eyes of a lot of people back then. But, you know, there's this scene where, you know, Prince Hal doesn't want to visit his dad, because he's, you know, been in really bad terms with them. He's like, you know, he's doing everything wrong, and then he just, you know, he's like the profligate, you know, the prodigal son gone astray. You know, his father's ashamed of him, you know, takes the inheritance away from him, you know, says that, you know, I'm gonna give the throne to your younger son. You know, he might be inexperienced, but he's, you know, he's got the zeal or whatever. And, you know, Prince Hal's, you know, best friend, you know, Sir John Falstaff, is telling him to, you know, go see his son and, you know, square his ledger with him, you know, or else, you know, if he doesn't, then, you know, after his father is gone, he's gonna just, you know, be so distraught that, you know, there's gonna be no way to really cope with the pain, you know, there'll be, you know, not enough drink to, you know, to get rid of his pain, you know. And I feel like I need to do something like that, you know, to talk to my mom and let her know. Because, you know, I've looked back over the last 20 years, and also I've seen that, you know, even more than that, like, you know, as much as my sister, and she, you know, my sister will never own up to this. She's not one for self-accountability, never one to actually admit that she's wrong or to apologize. As much as she's driven a wedge between my mom and I, and even to a certain extent my dad, you know, did, maybe not intentionally, I don't know. I'm willing to I wanted to give him some benefit of the doubt. I think he's always had certain notions about how things are supposed to be, and he's acted on those even when like he kept getting like negative feedback from it, and just was wanting to cling to those sorts of sensibilities and notions. But my mom was always the one who stood up for me, against like that dirtbag cousin of mine, or against my sister, or even against my father if my father was going too harsh on me for punishment or something like that. And my mom always seemed to forgive me and to be the one who missed me the most, and wanted just to talk with me. And I'm like angry at myself for all the times that this is so classic. This is so damn classic. All the times that I missed calls from her, or I got annoyed that she was calling me, and I was like, oh, I'm at work, or I'm doing this or that, what does she want, etc., etc., because I had honestly heard from her saying things like, when I lived there, oh, why can't you just, get the hell out of our house, and, etc., etc., and, using negative reinforcement to try and get me to, get my, act together and that sort of thing. And there was some bitterness from that. There I was, finally out of the house and making money, getting my life together and all this sort of stuff, and paying off debts and just getting things sorted out. And it's like all these regrets, that like, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to blame myself because I don't think that's really helpful. But it's always like, oh, all those conversations I'll never get to have. I would always think about that presently in terms of talking to my grandmother. The conversations I'll never get to have with her after she's gone. But now it's like it's my mom that I'm having to think about that sort of stuff with regards to. And I don't know. I do want to talk to her and just like get that out because. Again, I don't know how much longer there is. I don't know, if it was going to be a matter of like a week from now and she's gone and she doesn't even get into chemotherapy, or if it's, a month from now and she gets into chemo and it doesn't do anything, or, it only extends her life by so many more months, or whatever the case may be. I just need to, sort of square my ledger with her, because as much things have been said and done, if I don't, do that now, like, it's going to hurt even more. I know it's already going to hurt, period, but if I can at least, say goodbye to her, knowing that we, squared our ledger, and we're, like, she knows that I love her, because I know that she loves me. And I think one of the reasons, not to wax too philosophical, but I think one of the reasons why, there's that whole mother-son dynamic, and I'm not getting into the Freudian stuff right now, but I think it's because for most men, the closest thing to, and I'm not saying it's unconditional love, but I think the closest thing to experiencing unconditional love from a woman for most men comes from our mothers. And I know maybe, in its truest sense, maybe the closest it gets is 99.999 repeating, percent unconditional, and there's that little bit that, makes it conditional. But it's like the closest thing that you can, experience of unconditional love from a woman, for the most part, for most men. Most men don't get to be that guy that the ladies just want because because of who you are, not what you are or what you can do for them, And, in most cases, for most men, the only time where they experience that kind of love from a woman where, it's, I love you because of who you are, because, you're my son. That's typically only experience with, with your mother. And a lot of the reason why it's hitting me is because, my mom being in being in the hospital. I think she said this when she was still in the ER. And she was asking me, if I, how I was feeling and if I'd gotten, enough to eat and all that. And I told her, don't worry about me, Mom, don't worry about me. And then she was like, I'll always worry about you because you're my son, you'll always be my son, I'm your mother, I will always be your mother, and because of that, I'll always worry about you. And you contrast that with a lot of the experiences I've had with women in general, where, it's like the whole, like they didn't give a damn what their actions were doing to me or how I was feeling about this or that. Clearly that ex-girlfriend of mine where it was just like, if she felt like treating me like a punching bag one day, or she just felt like she was gonna, X out of the relationship, for 2 weeks or something like that, or go off and do whatever the hell. Could have been cheating on me, whatever. She was just gonna go do that, and here you have like my mom who, we take our parents for granted. And for a lot of kids it's the fact that, they take their mothers for granted, or others, it's they don't even get to have like a father in their life for whatever reason. Parents are divorced, parents were never married, and dad was just, the hot guy in the foam cannon party down in Cancun that, mom met on spring break, and for whatever reason or other she decided to, or she decided to carry the child to term, or she couldn't get an abortion, in time, or it's, because, dad was a deadbeat dad, he just skipped town, or he died, and they don't get to have a father in their life. And it's real easy to take them for granted because they're there from the moment you're born, so to one extent or another, to at least for at least some time, up to a certain point, and they're always kind of there in the background. They're in your blood, they're in your bones, they're kind of like looking back at you in the mirror a bit, and it's easy to take it for granted. Take a lot of things for granted. And I'm having to learn right now that, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, don't take your days for granted, your time for granted, your family, your friends for granted. And if you got some girl in your life who loves you to bits, not taking her for granted, if she can actually see something in you that she appreciates about you, and, has your back to at least a significant extent, to the point that it would take a real high price for her to be willing to leave you, and to really make the most of your time, and to be willing to admit when you're wrong, and when you're doing stuff you're not supposed to be doing, and the stuff that you're doing, isn't right, and you need to change, because I think one of the things that's, made me so mad with my mom has been that anytime she hurt herself with alcohol, she was hurting me, and she didn't really stop to think about like what that was doing, because I knew the stories about my grandpa and my uncle, and just what alcoholism has done to my family, and it was all this case of like, Mom, please stop, please admit that you're wrong, admit that you have a problem with alcohol, and please change your ways, because I don't want to be walking behind your funeral hearse before I hit 40, and for whatever reason she couldn't stop, and my dad had to keep on, slipping her the alcohol behind our backs and all this sort of stuff, and I don't know if that's the cause of this cancer that they're saying she has, but at the very least it's the fact that, even if she was still going to get cancer, It's the fact of all the wasted time, you know. I mean, it's like neither my sister or I are, married with kids. My sister's got this fiance now, but it's this whole thing where like they're not at a position or anything in life to even like have their own place, even if it's a rented apartment. To be going ahead to get married and to have kids and all this stuff. And now we're sitting here thinking we're going to be losing our mother, and it's sort of like this question of like, if all of our lives were just that much more together, at the very least, like, my mom would get to see her grandkids, and we'd be each established like in our respective careers. We'd have spouses of our own and doing all that kind of stuff, and I would at least feel like, okay, we checked off all these major milestones. Like, parents don't gotta worry about us after they're gone. There'll be some sort of legacy, something that will have come out of this. But it's not like that. It's not like that right now. So I don't know. I'm in the emergency room parking lot, and I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna show them my little wristband, and then go use the restroom, and then checking out my mom, and maybe afterwards I'll come out here. And because it's the emergency room parking lot, I think I actually have service. Let me see. Yeah, I actually got service out here, so I can use this phone to try and aside from doing what I've mostly been doing, which is keep myself up at night looking up stuff on cancer and pancreatic cancer, and trying to find survivor stories, and what did they do to get things rolling in the right direction, and all that sort of stuff. Maybe looking up stuff that'll put my mind on something else, so I don't basically drive myself insane. But anyways, this is just a general update video. I guess I'll close up by saying that I am on NoFap. I'm really not sure what the day is. I think I'm past like the 2 or 3 week mark. I really have to check up on my calendar and all this sort of stuff. But I'm just keeping on. I'll approximate a number of days, and I'll kind of go there. And when I do end up back in San Jose, I will correct the number. But I'm not really thinking that far down the future. I mean, that's like probably could be a month, could be 2 months, could be 3 months in the future. And I hope I'm going up there with my mom still alive, and making progress in her chemo and that sort of thing. But that she's actually gotten into that. Anyways, so talk to you folks later, and I'll try to upload this video. That's it for now. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support too. Bye.